This is Miss Saffron, and I'm going to be going over the physical geography of Southeast Asia, Oceania, and Australia, just hitting some of the main points in this region, starting with Southeast Asia. These are countries directly south of China. There's a lot of peninsulas in this region, and remember, a peninsula is a piece of land that sticks out with 3 bodies of water around it. So directly below China, you have a bunch of countries that are sticking out. And then you have island countries like Indonesia, the Philippines, that are what we call archipelagos because there's a bunch of islands in the same spot. So that's what this region is. Peninsulas such as the Indochina Peninsula, literally below China, that's an easy way to remember that, includes the countries of Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. The Malay Peninsula is the little tail that sticks out, and at the bottom of the Malay Peninsula is Malaysia, Singapore, and then Thailand. So that just gives you kind of an idea of what those look like. If you were in Southeast Asia on the mainland, they rely very much so on coastlines and rivers. Some of the main rivers are going to be the Mekong River that flows through Thailand and Vietnam. You have the Red River that flows through Vietnam, the Salween River, and then the Irrawaddy River both go through Myanmar. And this area also has a lot of mountains that run north and south that kind of go with the countryside. In Southeast Asia, like I said, you also have archipelagos. A very famous archipelago is going to be the Philippines that have over 7,000 islands. Good thing about an archipelago is it's great for trading. There's lots of port cities, lots of waterways, but then they are also affected by typhoons. They're affected by tsunamis, landslides, volcanoes. The country of the Philippines is located in the Ring of Fire, so they have to deal with a lot of natural phenomena. So this is a 360 showing you the archipelagos in the Philippines. So you can see the different islands in the background. Just kind of showing you how close some of these islands are, that you can see them, with that. And then another archipelago is going to be Indonesia that has over 17,000 islands, but only 6,000 actually have people on them. It's along the Strait of Malacca, which is this choke point. And it's also an area full of pirates, modern day pirates, because there's so much trade that goes through there. Indonesia floods because there's a lot of water, also deals with droughts, deals with tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanoes, and then forest fires. So that country also has to deal with a lot of things. In Southeast Asia, they have a lot of natural resources, including fertile soil. Their soil is so fertile because of the volcanic activity and constant flooding. One of their main crops is going to be rice paddies. They're also big in fishing with all the water resources, and then they have limited mineral resources. Most of their area is farmland. So this is showing you just kind of the terrain. Notice you've got flooded fields here. Those are flooded rice paddy fields. You can see some of the culture as well. But you can also see that it's not flat. It's very mountainous. There's not, a lot of farmland. Their farmland is along either valleys or mountainsides. So just using the environment. In Southeast Asia, they have a rainforest environment. They're right along or close to the equator. So it rains quite a bit. And this is also where some of our rainforest species are at. So 10% of the world's plant and animal species are going to live here. Skipping the quiz, I would make sure you do the quiz just to check your understanding. Usually these are quiz questions that we use. Okay, moving on to Oceania. So your clue right there, the word ocean deals with a lot of water. This area deals with a lot of water. So Oceania is over 20,000 islands that form Oceania. This does not include the islands of the Philippines and Indonesia. These are all those small, teeny tiny islands that you see on like calendars that you want to go vacation on. So like in the pictures here, we have the island of Fiji, Tahiti, both look very nice vacation areas. That's what we're talking about here. Those are the kind of islands. Australia and New Zealand are considered part of Oceania. And there's 3 categories of islands. You have high volcanic islands, which means that at one time or currently there's a volcano on that island. Low coral reefs or coral islands, and then a continental island, which I'll get into what they mean in a second. If you've ever seen the movie Moana, the film does a really great job showing what island life is like in Oceania and then also the culture of the people. This clip right here is showing you what a high island looks like. Those volcanic islands that have high elevation, lots of different vegetation. So definitely take a peek of it when you look at this nearby. So high islands, also known as volcanic islands, as you can see from the little diagram here, these are areas that used to be a volcano, and as a volcano erupts, it's changing that geography. So the Hawaiian Islands is a great example of a high volcanic island because volcanoes are constantly changing what that geography looks like, and over time it creates that high island, which is why a lot of these areas have black beaches that are volcanic beaches. Then we have low coral islands. These are from extinct volcanoes that either over time they've either eroded or sea level has risen. And all you see is just the sandbar or coral that has been left over. And it creates what is called an atoll, which is kind of like an island with water in the middle, or like what we see on the bottom one here. So these are lower islands. Usually they're right at sea level, if not below sea level. They flood quite a bit as well. And then you have continental islands that are rock risen from continental shelves. They're not formed from volcanoes, but they may have a volcano on this island. You can see that there's a very steep cliff that happens with this island. So these are islands where the earth has just lifted up, not from volcanic activity, but just from plate tectonics moving, that has caused kind of random islands to form in the Pacific. So this is just kind of giving you a nice view, kind of a pre-summer view of maybe where some of y'all might go this summer, but showing you what some of these volcanic islands look like in Oceania. So because these are islands, there's not a lot of natural resources. If you're on a low island, there is actually not a whole lot at all. It's a lot of just sand and rocks, and that's pretty much it. So very scarce resources. It's very hard to develop industry, which is why most of these countries depend very heavily on tourism. So again, going back to Moana, if you've seen this scene in Moana where Maui, the demigod, he is stuck on a coral island or a low island. And again, when you're watching the clip and you're singing the song to yourself, it's more of just, do you recognize the geography that's around him and that it's very dry, very dense, very hard to live on and do anything on. So there is a category of islands in Oceania. So there's 3 types of islands. You have Micronesia, which are tiny islands, Melanesia, which are black islands, and then Polynesia means many islands. So this is again giving you a nice viewpoint of, I believe this is Tahiti, showing you just kind of what tourism looks like. You can see where the water comes up, but then it's also got kind of a high island going on here. And this is what most of these countries make their money off of, is people coming and vacationing. So again, just giving you an idea of where those types of islands are. Micronesia are going to be the teeny tiny islands. Usually you cannot see them on a map because they're so tiny. Melanesia are going to be your volcanic islands, and then Polynesia are areas that have multiple islands in them. And notice the Hawaiian Islands are part of Polynesia. All right. So getting to New Zealand and Australia, some of our 2 biggest countries in Oceania. New Zealand has 2 main islands, a North and South Island, pretty easy to remember. Their southern island has what is called the Southern Alps. So they are 45 degrees south of the equator, which means that they're pretty much similar to northern Canada. And so the southern part of New Zealand actually has a very cold climate. They're very close to Antarctica, and they have very good skiing resorts and mountainous areas. Their resources on the North Island has very fertile soil, good for farming, cattle, and forest. They have a lot of trade because of being an island nation. They use their rivers for hydroelectric power, and they also have geothermal energy from underground volcanoes. And so that's, again, another example of clean energy. And then moving to Australia, it is the smallest and flattest continent. It is the only continent/country that we have here. And most of Australia is actually really dry and very desert-like. We have what is called the outback, which is a very dry area. There's a lot of mining, a lot of agriculture, a lot of cattle. Very similar to West Texas is what you could see Australia as. And then Eastern Australia is where you have most of the people. So most of your major cities, your rivers like the Darling River and the Murray River both dump out of Eastern Australia. The Great Artesian Basin is going to be a flood zone where most of the farming is going to be at. And then their main mountain range that goes down the east coast of Australia is the Great Dividing Range. And so again, just kind of showing you this is what most of Australia looks like. So this is in the outback, very dry, that red clay sand, very desert-like vegetation. And then this is Sydney, Australia, near their Opera House. So very developed country. Like any major city in the world, it's got nice infrastructure. You can tell Australia is a very wealthy country, and part of that is their colonial ties from Europe. All right, and then we get to Antarctica, which we don't really get a whole lot into Antarctica. There's not a whole lot going on. It is a big, giant block of ice. It is the 5th largest continent. The ice is 2 miles thick and covers 95% of the continent. There is a mountain range in Antarctica called the Trans-Antarctic Mountains that crosses over the continent. But Antarctica is so cold, it's considered a polar desert. So they do have tundra climate. There are areas that stay very, very cold, but because of global warming, scientists and researchers are worried that Antarctica is actually melting. There's parts of Antarctica that are already showing signs of melting and whatnot. But there are people that live down in Antarctica. They're down there doing science and research, and technology is making it possible for them to stay down there longer. Okay. Let's see. So this virtual, here we go. This is what Antarctica looks like. So you can see it's not just all snow. There are some rocky areas, but you can imagine how cold this is. And it literally is a polar desert. You can't really see much. Not really a whole lot going on. Not a whole lot of life being able to live there because it is a big giant block of ice. And there you have it. That is the physical geography of Southeast Asia, Oceania, Australia, and Antarctica. Definitely go back and try the quizzes, watch the videos. That way you can get more in depth. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.